What is the Canton Network and why is it something that we should pay attention or care about? A press release came out this week announcing a new alliance between a large group, about 30 different financial institutions, uh, indicating the plans for interoperability across blockchain and financial services is underway. So, let's break it down. Hey, welcome to the show. Molly here. Today we're going to talk about the Canton Network, which is a new alliance that was recently announced between a large group of financial institutions, which to me has given some confirmation of a couple things. Number one, that the financial world is moving to the blockchain. That's something we've been speculating and discussing for some time, but it's nice to see some actual evidence and proof. Number two, that it's going to be happening quickly. The announcement indicated plans to start testing this in July of this year, which coincidentally is when the sort of FedNow service is launching. There's also one of the institutions that is a member of this alliance is the Digital Dollar Project. We've been speculating for some time, will the United States have a CBDC? Will there be a retail and a wholesale CBDC? There's been much debate back and forth about whether that will happen and what that really means. So seeing their participation in this alliance has been interesting to say the least. And the reason why I am focused on it is I would like to know what's going to happen so that I can prepare and look for opportunities and look for ways to benefit from this. I was part of the early internet adoption in that technology world, and the people who kind of knew what was coming could see very clearly how to move forward. And there were a lot of businesses and people who were very resistant to that change and kind of in denial that the internet was really going to be a big deal and was really going to change things, or like, are people really going to buy shoes on the internet? There's no way that I could actually ever order like a car service from my phone. People aren't going to replace mail or in-person type of interactions. And we've seen that just the internet has revolutionized life and business in an incredible amount of ways. And I personally believe that the blockchain is the next version of the internet, and there's going to be an equally magnificent number of changes. Now, some things are going to go away, like progress sometimes makes certain types of technology like the fax machine obsolete. And I think we're going to see a lot of fax machines in our current world go away over time. And so my goal with this video and some of the other things that I do is to just help you be able to see more clearly, what do we think is going to happen? What do we think is going to change for our lives? And how can you prepare for those changes so that, one, if there's anything that you could personally benefit from, that you could do that. Two, there's things you need to be careful about, then you could do that. And three, when these changes come, if you expect them, they're not really that big of a deal. But the people who are often caught flat-footed in these types of changes they're often frustrated and feel like victimized, that like, I didn't know that was going to happen. So we know things are going to happen. Let's try to figure it out. I'm going to walk you through right now what I've learned so far about the Canton Network. So the first article that I came across was on Bloomberg, and it announced that Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, CBOE, and others have kind of teamed up to launch this blockchain network. So we're going to walk through this a little bit, but a couple high level things. It does not look to me like anyone has launched a blockchain. So there's no token or coin or anything that we as retail investors should buy. This is really a heads up that the institutional players are working together and focused on making sure that any of the kind of institutional markets that they're putting together, they're interoperable, which simply means that they can talk to each other, you can exchange value or money through them, and you could settle up different trades across these different networks. And this is key. I mean, when the internet first started, we didn't really want to have these sort of silos where you couldn't, send an email from one company to another. I mean, that seems like a silly thing to say at this point, but it doesn't matter what email provider you use, if it's Gmail or Hotmail or whatever, you can send email back and forth. And this is sort of the same idea of interoperability with blockchains, is that it doesn't matter if your blockchain or your token rests on the XRP ledger or if it rests on on the Stellar network or another blockchain, they should all be able to speak to each other and be exchanged pretty easily. Because if you have a institutional bond market and you want to settle up with somebody who has funds on another kind of blockchain, that shouldn't be a big barrier. And the thing that's difficult sometimes is the scope of how big the financial system is sometimes daunting. So for these companies to kind of get together and create this alliance, I think is very promising that we're going to see everything be tokenized. We're going to see a lot of settlement of trades being done on the blockchain, which means they'll happen very, very quickly. And all right, and a couple other things. So let's break some of these things down. All right, so who's involved in this? We see Goldman Sachs, Microsoft, CBOE, which stands for the Chicago Board Options Exchange, and others have teamed up to launch this network. So there's quite a few heavy hitters in here. This company called Digital Asset, which I think is confusing for us because we have the sort of generic digital asset that describes many of these tokens and coins that we talk about. But there's also a business called Digital Asset, and they are the ones who seem to be at the core of this. They have a smart contract language called DAML, the Digital Asset Machine Language, that is sort of the key center of this. And this was created by an ex JP Morgan guy, Blythe Masters, and we don't necessarily know what this person's alliances are, but we see a history of JP Morgan obviously being a key part of the financial system. They were also key in developing the Ethereum blockchain, and this some of the articles I read did position this as an alternative or even a competitor to Ethereum. But I don't think that they're using their own blockchain necessarily. It's just they're leveraging this idea of smart contracts. What else do we learn about here? So the goal here is to transform how traditional securities like stocks and bonds are traded and used on the blockchain. We want to speed up trading, which is synonymous for the velocity of money. They want to use blockchain for settlement, which means that the counterparty risk involved, if it takes a couple of days for basically the bills to get paid, that goes away. We have this concept called atomic settlements, which I first learned about from Polysign. But it just means that the value and the asset itself are exchanged simultaneously. So there's no risk on one side of the trade. And it also means that you don't have to have staff following up on unpaid bills and worrying about somebody getting something and not really having the money. It kind of makes that whole transition very, very seamless. This is expected to begin testing in July. And it's going to be, they refer to it as a network of networks. The real concept here in my take is that it's about interoperability, allowing fast exchange of assets across a variety of platforms. And if you think about how large the financial service is, including the derivatives market, which CBOE is about options, which is a derivatives product, I think we're going to see some pretty exciting developments there. Some different media networks did pick up this article from this press release. So the original press release is here as well. And it does cover a lot of things that the article picked up. But there was a few things that I did want to mention that stuck out. Number one is this list of all of these companies. This is a big venture. I'm not familiar with a lot of them, but I'm not deep in the financial services industry. But a couple of them really did stick out to me as being big players. Deloitte, Goldman Sachs, obviously, SBI, the Digital Dollar Project, which is basically a sort of nonprofit that's focused on the United States central bank digital currency, which could be a wholesale CBDC, could be a retail CBDC, or there could be both. We're still kind of waiting on confirmation. I'm very confident there will absolutely be a wholesale CBDC, and that may be what the involvement is of the Digital Dollar Project here in this particular initiative, because this is not something that retail people are likely going to be a part of. This is an institutional financial system alliance or consortium, and they may be using a U.S. wholesale CBDC to settle up some of their trades as well. All right, what are some of the other interesting things? As I mentioned, it's smart contract. It's a network of networks. It enables financial institutions to experience a safer and reconciliation-free environment where assets can trade freely across applications. So one of the things that the financial world has to deal with that, us as retail users don't really have to, is a lot of worry about security and privacy and complying with regulations. And so this is looks to me like they've been really struggling to balance the innovative benefits of a fast decentralized blockchain network with this need to have a gated garden so that they their world that is pretty regulated and needs to be ensured to be compliant with a lot of different rules, that has to be something they pay attention to. And so today, up to today, it looks like a lot of these companies have been building these various blockchain networks, but they're siloed, they're independent. It's like independent islands in the ocean. And what this is doing is building a series of bridges that will allow, assets to be freely traded. Now, one question that comes up that I'll be honest, I don't have definitive answers on is, does Ripple fit into this? Is Ripple a competitor to this? And same thing with Polysign. We've learned about atomic settlement from Polysign. So if this organization is also leveraging or promoting the same concept, are these competitors? To me, it looks like this world is so big that there is really a place for everyone to kind of fit into this larger map. uh, I might be wrong. These might be some competitors that are vying for the same exact markets, but to me, it looks like Ripple is, my take, very much focused on liquidity and providing an asset and an exchange that makes value very easy to move around. Polysign, my understanding, is really about custody. And it looks to me like this particular project's main focus is using smart contracts to enable interoperability across a variety of different networks, blockchains, protocols, whatever you want to call them. And they're using the institutional clients that they work with because they have a particular set of needs around control and privacy. Financial services world has been like that for some time. So they're not interested in truly public open blockchains where everybody can see all of the transactions. They want something that is much more gated and guarded. Now, you could argue whether that's good or bad. I'm not here actually to pass judgment on any of this. I just want to know what's coming, so that I can prepare and see what's ahead and look for opportunities to serve the clients that I work with as well as my own interests or whatnot. These big changes are coming. Sometimes people like to use the expression, nothing can stop what is coming. And with that attitude, I just really want to be able to prepare for it so I'm not shocked or caught off guard and uh, feeling like powerless to know what's happening. There's some pretty powerful quotes in here from some of the participants, but I think this is just an interesting development that shows the world of finance is eagerly embracing the blockchain, and we're getting closer than we thought. I mean, July is right now, it's middle of May. July is not that far away, and it looks like there will be some big, powerful tests coming along, same time that Fed now launches. So I expect that this could be the summer where we see something that is possibly akin to a flip the switch moment when these institutions are ready to migrate over. All right. Hope this was helpful. I'll see you in the next one.